My name is Nancy Ward, and I'm 28 years old. For most of my life, people have called me the dependable one. I was the friend who stayed behind after a party to help clean up, the coworker who volunteered for the boring tasks no one wanted, the girlfriend who remembered birthdays, anniversaries, favorite meals, and even the smallest details like how someone liked their tea. I wore that label like armor, believing that if I was kind enough, loyal enough, stable enough, I would never be left behind. But I was wrong. Daniel, my boyfriend of 3 years, was the kind of man who lit up rooms when he entered. At least that's how I saw him in the beginning. We met in college. He had this restless energy, a hunger to conquer the world. I, on the other hand, was the quiet balance, grounded, practical, willing to do the little things that kept our lives together. When we graduated, it felt natural to move in together. I thought we were building a future. In those early days, I sacrificed more than I admitted. I turned down a promotion at work that would have required relocating because Daniel had just landed his dream position here. I told myself it was love, that this was what couples did, compromise and support one another. And for a while, I believed it. I came home from long shifts and cooked his favorite meals from scratch. I managed the bills, the rent, the grocery lists. I kept the car running and remembered to send flowers to his mother on her birthday. Daniel used to call me his anchor. I thought it was a compliment. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, the word anchor turned from praise into a chain. It started with little remarks, barely sharp enough to sting on their own. One night, I held the door open for a woman juggling grocery bags. Daniel laughed. Not the warm laugh I loved, but something edged. "Why are you always so helpful?" he asked, the question heavy with mockery. I brushed it off. "Because that's who I am." His eyes lingered on me in a way that felt less like admiration and more like assessment. Later, when I accepted a secure job with excellent benefits instead of gambling on a risky startup, he shook his head. "You're too safe, Nancy. Too predictable. Don't you ever want more than comfort?" Comfort. He said it like it was poison. I tried to explain. "I don't think stability is the enemy of ambition. I just don't want us to risk everything." He rolled his eyes. "There's a difference between being careful and being boring. You're boring, Nancy." That word burrowed into me. Boring. It echoed when I brushed my teeth at night, when I looked at myself in the mirror. I began to wonder if he was right. The changes came faster after that. Daniel started going out late, not with our old circle of friends, but with a glittering new crowd from his job. People who wore expensive watches and tossed around words like portfolio and networking. He'd come home smelling of perfume and cologne I didn't recognize. At first, I told myself he was just networking. He needed this for his career. But one night, he came back later than usual, eyes glassy, voice detached. He looked at me as if I was a stranger sitting on his couch. I tried to make breakfast the next morning, his favorite, blueberry pancakes. He pushed the plate away without a word. Then he sat down, his phone buzzing beside him, and said, "We need to talk." The air thickened. My stomach dropped. I had heard those words before from friends who were dumped. But hearing them in my own kitchen, from the man I loved, was like being shoved under ice water. "I can't do this anymore," Daniel said, his tone flat, almost rehearsed. His fingers drummed against the table. "I'm not happy. I need something more, someone with an edge." I forced my voice to remain steady. "What are you talking about?" He smirked, not with humor, but with cruelty. "Don't pretend you don't know. I'm with Vanessa now. She's alive. She takes risks. She doesn't hold me back." The name burned. Vanessa, one of his new colleagues. I had heard him mention her once or twice, always followed with, "Just a friend." "You've been seeing her," I whispered. He didn't even flinch. He nodded, almost proudly. "It's what I need. She's not afraid of life. She's not weak." And then he delivered the words that split me open. "Honestly, Nancy, you're just too kind. And kindness, it's weakness. I can't be with someone weak." The silence that followed was deafening. I stared at him, trying to reconcile the man who once called me his anchor with the stranger across the table. My chest tightened, but no tears came. Instead, an icy calm spread through me. I stood, walked to the kitchen, and placed the untouched pancakes in the sink. My movements were slow, deliberate, like I was rehearsing a role in a play. Daniel was watching me, waiting for me to break, to shout, to sob, to beg. He wanted a performance. Instead, I gave him a faint smile, polite, detached, almost kind, but it didn't reach my eyes. I understand, I said quietly. I wish you well, Daniel. His smugness faltered, just slightly. He had expected drama, not indifference. I turned, walked into the bedroom, and pulled out a duffel bag. My hands moved automatically, folding clothes, sliding my passport into a side pocket, unplugging my laptop charger. Daniel followed me in, his voice rising now that his script had been ruined. What are you doing? We need to talk about this. We just did, I replied without looking at him. You're just going to leave? He grabbed my arm, eyes wide with disbelief. I looked down at his hand on my skin, then back at him. My voice was steady, almost a whisper. You called me a stepping stone, then consider me gone. Let go. He dropped my arm like it burned him. I zipped the duffel shut, walked out of the apartment with the keys still in my pocket, and didn't look back. The door clicked behind me. Outside, the air was sharp and cold against my face, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to freedom. Not joy, not yet, just silence. And in that silence, I realized my kindness might have been mistaken for weakness, but it would also be the thing that saved me. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that I was done being Daniel's anchor. From this moment on, I would learn how to be my own. The highway stretched before me like an endless ribbon, the headlights of other cars streaking past in blurs of white and red. My duffel bag sat in the passenger seat, stuffed with pieces of the life I had just walked away from. I didn't have a plan, not really. All I knew was that if I stayed, I'd drown in Daniel's contempt. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. His name lit up the screen. Daniel. I let it ring until it stopped. A minute later, another call. Then another. By the fifth call, I turned the phone face down. I couldn't listen to him anymore. His voice would only tether me back to the cage I'd just escaped. Hours later, I pulled into a small roadside motel. The neon sign flickered, humming against the night. Inside the room, the silence pressed against me. No Daniel pacing the kitchen, no laughter from his friends echoing down the hall, no mocking tone telling me I was boring. Just silence. I sat on the bed, still in my coat, staring at the pattern on the carpet. It hit me then I had nowhere to go. No family nearby, no friends who hadn't already taken Daniel's side. My chest tightened as the reality pressed in. I wasn't just alone. I was invisible. But invisibility had its advantages. That night, I opened my laptop and pulled up an old email. Months ago, my manager had offered me a promotion at our company's branch in another city. I had declined it for Daniel. Now I typed a single sentence in reply. If the position is still available, I'll take it. I hit send. For the first time in weeks, my breathing steadied. The move happened quickly. Within 2 weeks, I was standing in a new apartment, boxes stacked against the walls, the air smelling faintly of fresh paint and emptiness. The silence here was different than the motel's suffocating quiet. This silence was a blank canvas. At first, I hated it. Coming home from work to 4 bare walls. No laughter, no one waiting at the door. My evenings stretched long and hollow. I'd find myself staring at my phone, half expecting a message from Daniel, even though I had blocked him the moment I left. The loneliness was sharpest at night. Lying in bed, I'd replay his words like a cruel mantra. Too kind, weak, boring. My chest would ache and tears would blur the ceiling. I wondered if he was laughing with Vanessa somewhere, telling her the same things he once told me. I wondered if she made him feel alive in ways I never could. But mornings were different. Mornings gave me tasks, meetings, emails, deadlines. I threw myself into work. Every project became a lifeline, every finished report, a small reminder that I could function, that I could still build something, even if it wasn't the life I had once imagined. To fill the emptiness, I started running after work. At first, I barely made it 2 blocks before my lungs burned. But I kept going, pushing myself further each day. The rhythm of my feet on pavement drowned out the voices in my head. With every mile, I felt myself shedding the weight of Daniel's disdain. Cooking helped too. I used to cook for Daniel, his favorites, his comfort foods. Now I cooked for myself. Strange recipes I'd never tried before. Curry with too much ginger, pasta that came out half burned, soups that simmered for hours. Some nights I ate in silence, savoring the flavors. Other nights, I laughed at my failures. Either way, it was mine. Still, the apartment felt too empty, too quiet. That's when I went to the animal shelter. She was small, scruffy, with mismatched patches of fur and eyes that seemed too big for her face. The volunteer said she had been abandoned. Something in me cracked at that word. Abandoned. I signed the papers before I could second guess myself. I named her Luna. The first night, she curled up at the foot of my bed, her small body warm against my feet. I cried quietly into my pillow, not from sadness this time, but from the strange comfort of not being alone. But as I rebuilt, the shadows of Daniel lingered. Word traveled, even across cities. A mutual friend, Melissa, reached out one afternoon. Her message was laced with judgment. People are saying you just walked out on him, that you didn't even try. Daniel was heartbroken, Nancy. You owe him an explanation. I stared at the screen, anger flaring. Heartbroken? Daniel had replaced me before he even ended things, but instead of defending myself, I deleted the message. I wouldn't waste energy explaining my pain to people who never cared to see it. The gossip spread anyway. In their version of the story, Daniel was the victim. I was the ice queen who had abandoned him. I imagined them sitting in bars, shaking their heads about how cruel I had been. Let them talk. Their words couldn't touch me here. At night, when the loneliness clawed at me, I'd sit by the window with Luna on my lap, staring at the city lights. I whispered the same promise to myself: kindness is not weakness. Not anymore. Not when I choose where to give it. Each repetition felt like stitching a wound closed. One evening, after a long run, I returned home to find a voicemail waiting. The voice was familiar. Daniel's best friend, Chris. Nancy, look, I don't know what you've heard, but Daniel's not doing so great. Vanessa's, well, let's just say it's not working out. He's been saying your name a lot. I think he regrets what he did. Maybe you should talk to him. I deleted it. My finger hovered for a moment, trembling, but I pressed down hard. Delete. I curled up on the couch, Luna tucked against my chest, and whispered into the darkness, no more. I don't go back. Outside, the city pulsed with life, neon signs flickering, cars humming down the street. I was still lonely, yes, still wounded, but for the first time, the silence in my apartment didn't feel suffocating. It felt like space. Space I could fill with something new, something mine. And deep down, I knew Daniel's glittering world was starting to crack. 3 months passed before I heard his name again. By then, the routines I had built, morning runs, long work days, quiet evenings with Luna curled against my side, had begun to stitch some semblance of normalcy into my life. The ache in my chest still existed, but it no longer hollowed me out. It was just there, like a scar I didn't need to touch anymore. Then came the first message. It was from Melissa, the same friend who once told me I owed Daniel an explanation. The subject line read, "Hey, stranger." I shouldn't have opened it, but curiosity has a way of slipping past defenses. Nancy, I know things ended badly between you and Daniel, but I saw them at a bar last week. Him and Vanessa. It wasn't pretty. He was yelling at her, calling her names. Honestly, it was humiliating. He stormed out and left her crying in front of everyone. I just thought you should know. Maybe it wasn't you after all. I read the email 3 times, my emotions tangled. A part of me wanted to smile at the irony. Another part, the old Nancy, wanted to feel sorry for him. But mostly, I felt nothing. I closed my laptop without replying. The whispers grew louder after that. Messages trickled in from mutual acquaintances, each one dripping with urgency. Jessica, hey Nancy, I don't know if you've heard, but Daniel's been struggling. Vanessa maxed out his credit cards and then left him. He's a wreck. He keeps saying he made a mistake with you. Maybe you could just talk to him? Lisa, his cousin, you always claim to be this kind, caring person. Well, now's your chance to prove it. Daniel's at rock bottom. If you actually cared about him, you wouldn't leave him like this. The words cut deeper than I wanted to admit. Kind, caring, weak. They had all blurred together for so long. I stared at Lisa's message until my vision blurred. My finger hovered over the reply button, my chest tight with guilt. Old instincts stirred, the urge to fix, to help, to rush back into the burning building, even if it meant being consumed by the flames. Then Luna jumped onto my lap, startling me. She pressed her small head against my hand, purring softly, grounding me. I inhaled sharply. Then I hit block. The old Nancy would have run back. But the woman sitting here, in this quiet apartment, knew better. Still, the whispers found other ways in. One evening after work, I passed by a cafe near the office and overheard two colleagues gossiping. Did you hear about Daniel Pierce? That guy's life is a mess right now. Vanessa drained him dry, and now he's drowning in debt. I swear, some people just attract chaos. My name wasn't mentioned, but my pulse quickened. I gripped my coffee cup tighter until my knuckles whitened. Hearing his downfall spoken aloud like idle gossip left me uneasy. That night I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Daniel's voice haunted me. Kindness is weakness. What if he was right? What if my silence now made me just as cruel as he had been to me? I turned on my side, watching Luna twitch in her sleep. No, this wasn't cruelty. This was survival. My kindness was still mine. I was just choosing not to waste it on someone who had spit it back in my face. The next test came a week later. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, my blood ran cold. Nancy, it's me. Please don't hang up if you hear this. I need to talk to you. Everything's gone wrong. Vanessa, she left. She took everything. I don't even know who I am anymore. I miss you. I miss us. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. I see that now. Please, please call me back. His voice was cracked, desperate, a shadow of the confident man who once told me I was boring. My hand shook as I held the phone. For a moment, I almost gave in, almost called him back, almost slipped into the old cycle where his chaos dictated my every breath. Instead, I pressed delete. The silence that followed was deafening, but also liberating. At work the next day, I couldn't focus. My manager asked a question during a meeting, and I realized I hadn't heard a word she said. My thoughts were trapped in that voicemail, in the weight of Daniel's voice begging me. That evening, I went for a run, pounding the pavement until my lungs burned and sweat stung my eyes. Every step was a battle between who I used to be and who I was becoming. When I finally collapsed onto the curb, gasping, a strange calm washed over me. I whispered into the night, "You don't get to use my kindness against me anymore." But the world didn't stop testing me. A few days later, I got another message, this time from an unknown number. The text was short, cutting. "You've changed. You used to be compassionate. Now you're cold. Do you even care that he's suffering?" I stared at the screen, my jaw tight. Whoever sent it, maybe a mutual friend, maybe even Daniel himself, knew exactly where to strike. But instead of replying, I turned the phone off. I stood in front of the mirror, studying my reflection. I didn't see cold. I saw a woman learning to protect herself. And in that moment, I realized something. Daniel's downfall wasn't my story anymore. His chaos wasn't my responsibility. Still, the whispers would keep coming. I knew that. People would always try to pull me back into his orbit, to guilt me with the very kindness they once mocked. But I wasn't the same woman who walked out of that apartment with trembling hands. Now, when I looked into the mirror, I whispered a new truth to myself. My kindness is not a weapon you can use against me. It's a gift, and I decide who deserves it. It happened on a Tuesday evening. I had just returned from work, my legs aching from the heels I'd worn all day, when my phone lit up with a call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. Normally, I'd let unknown calls go to voicemail, but something, curiosity, maybe instinct, made me swipe. "Hello?" "Nancy, thank God." My chest tightened instantly at the voice. It wasn't Daniel, it was his mother, Carol. I froze, the air leaving my lungs. Of all the people I expected to hear from, she was at the very bottom of the list. Carol had always been sweet to me in a way that felt rehearsed, like she was playing the role of doting mother-in-law while quietly pulling the strings behind the curtain. She adored Daniel, excused his flaws, and treated his choices as law. "Carol," I said slowly, cautious. "Oh, honey, I'm so glad you answered. Listen, I know things have been difficult between you and Daniel, but I need you to hear me out." Her tone was syrupy, too sweet, the kind of sweetness that coats something bitter. I gripped the counter, steadying myself. "I don't think we have much to talk about." "Please, Nancy," she rushed on. "Daniel is in a really bad place. Vanessa left him, took his money, his pride, everything. He's been so depressed. He says your name constantly. He knows he made a mistake. He knows you were always so good to him." The words washed over me like acid. Good to him, as if that had ever mattered to Daniel. "I'm sorry he's struggling," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice even. "But that's not my responsibility anymore." "Nancy, wait!" Carol's tone sharpened, desperation bleeding through the fake warmth. "He loves you. He sees it now. Don't throw away what you two had. He needs you back. Something inside me snapped. I closed my eyes and memories rushed forward. Carol brushing off my concerns when Daniel belittled me at dinners. Carol laughing when he called me boring in front of his friends. Carol once telling me, "That's just how men are, dear. Strong women like us know how to handle it." Strong women. Was I strong then, or was I just silent? I opened my eyes, my voice low and steady. "With all due respect, Carol, Daniel doesn't love me. If he did, he wouldn't have said the things he said. He wouldn't have left me for someone else. What he misses is not me. It's the comfort I provided. And I won't give that to him again." The silence on the line stretched thin, brittle. Then came the guilt. "You always said you were kind, Nancy. You always prided yourself on being there for people. And now, when he's at his lowest, you're just going to turn your back? That doesn't sound kind to me." Her words landed like daggers. For a heartbeat, I faltered. Am I cruel? Am I heartless? Then Luna meowed softly from her perch on the windowsill, and I looked at her. Small, fragile, yet resilient. She had been abandoned too, and I had taken her in, not because of obligation, but because I chose to. Choice, that was the difference. "I am kind," I said, my voice firm now. "But kindness doesn't mean being used. It doesn't mean sacrificing myself for someone who never valued me. My kindness is mine, Carol. I choose where it goes, and it will not go back to Daniel." Her voice cracked, anger replacing desperation. "You'll regret this, Nancy. One day you'll regret turning your back on him." "Maybe," I said softly, "but regret is better than losing myself again." And with that, I hung up. I stood in the kitchen, phone still in my hand, my heart pounding in my chest. The silence afterward was almost holy, a silence that said, "You finally chose yourself." For the first time since leaving Daniel, I felt powerful. That night, as I curled up in bed, sleep wouldn't come. The conversation replayed again and again. Carol's words echoed, "You'll regret this." But instead of guilt, I felt clarity. All these months, people had been trying to weaponize my kindness. Daniel, his friends, now his mother. They saw it as a lever they could pull, a button they could press to make me bend. "Not anymore. Not anymore," I whispered into the darkness. "Kindness is not weakness. It's power, and I decide how it's used." Luna shifted at my feet, purring softly like she understood. A few days later, a knock came at my door. My stomach flipped. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, a small package sat on the mat, no return address. Inside was a letter, scrawled in messy handwriting. "Daniels. Nancy, I don't know how else to reach you. I'm broken without you. Vanessa destroyed me. You were always the one who cared. Please, just talk to me. I need you. I'll change. I promise." The words blurred as I read them. Once they would have shattered me. Once I would have clung to them, desperate for validation. Now I saw them for what they were. Desperation, not love. A plea for comfort, not commitment. I folded the letter once, twice, and dropped it into the trash. No tears, no trembling hands, just resolve. In the days that followed, I felt lighter. The calls slowed, the messages stopped. It was as if Daniel and his circle realized I wasn't coming back. Not this time, not ever. And yet, in the back of my mind, I knew it wasn't over. People like Daniel didn't fade quietly. He would try again. He would find another stage, another audience. And when he did, I would be ready. Because I was no longer the woman who begged for scraps of affection. I was Nancy Ward. And I had finally learned that silence can be louder than any scream. When Emily's invitation first arrived, I almost deleted it. She was one of the few friends who hadn't chosen Daniel's side after the breakup. We'd kept in touch, small check-ins here and there. Now she was throwing a housewarming party in the old city. The thought of going back to the place where I had been humiliated, where whispers of my so-called cruelty still lingered, made my stomach churn. But Emily was important to me, and a part of me wanted to prove to myself that I could walk into that city and not be swallowed whole. So one Friday night, I slipped into a simple black dress, tied my hair back, and drove. The party pulsed with laughter, music, the clink of glasses. Emily greeted me with open arms, her smile genuine, her relief palpable. "I wasn't sure you'd come," she admitted, squeezing my hand. "Neither was I confessed. We talked for a while, catching up. She asked about my new job, my new apartment. I told her about Luna, about running, about how silence no longer terrified me. Her eyes softened. "You look stronger," she said. I wanted to believe her, but then I felt it, that presence, A shift in the air, a tightening in my chest. I turned, and there he was. Daniel. He looked smaller. His once confident stance was slouched. His sharp jawline was shadowed with uneven stubble. His eyes, once so alive with arrogance, now carried a hollow, frantic glimmer. He was holding a drink with a grip so tight his knuckles whitened. For a moment, we just stared at each other. 3 years of history in a single breath. Nancy, he whispered, as if saying my name might summon the woman he used to know. I kept my voice neutral. Daniel. He took a step closer, his shoulders hunched, his voice trembling. I can't believe you're here. I've been trying to reach you. Letters, calls. I got them, I interrupted, my tone flat. His eyes darted, searching mine for softness. He found none. I'm sorry, he blurted out. The words tumbled out in a rush, clumsy and desperate. I was so stupid, Nancy. Vanessa, she wasn't who I thought she was. She used me. She called me worthless, pathetic. She took everything. And now... His voice cracked. Now I see it. You were everything. You were the only one who truly cared. Please, Nancy. I need you. The old me, the one who folded herself small to make space for his storms, would have broken at those words. She would have reached for him, tried to patch his wounds, even if it meant bleeding herself dry. But I wasn't her anymore. I lifted my glass, taking a slow sip, scanning the room instead of his face. I saw Emily across the room, watching us carefully, concern etched in her eyes. I saw a couple of Daniel's old friends whispering, their gazes flicking between us, the audience he always needed. Finally, I set the glass down. You're right, Daniel. Vanessa was cruel. But you told me once that cruelty was what you wanted, that my kindness was weakness, remember? He flinched, his mouth opening and closing like a man gasping for air. You wanted someone who would challenge you, someone exciting, someone who wouldn't hold you back. Well, you got her, and now you're here, asking for the comfort you threw away. Nancy, please. I cut him off, my voice low, steady. You said I was a stepping stone. Do you know what stepping stones are for? Crossing rivers. Once you're across, you don't go back and pick them up. His face crumpled. I was wrong. I didn't mean it. You have to believe me. I don't have to do anything, I said. The faintest smile tugged at my lips. Not cruel, not warm, just final. I believed you the first time, when you looked me in the eye and told me I was weak. That was the truest thing you ever said to me, not because it was true, but because it showed me exactly who you are. He reached for my arm, but I stepped back. The movement was small, but it was enough to make him stop, his hand hanging limp in the air between us. Nancy, he whispered, his voice breaking. I'm begging you. I'm at rock bottom. For the first time, I looked at him fully. I saw not the man I once loved, but a stranger hollowed out by his own choices. His downfall wasn't poetic justice. It was simply consequence. I gave him the same polite smile I had worn the day I walked out of our apartment. It didn't reach my eyes. That part of my life is over, I said softly. The woman you're looking for doesn't exist anymore. I buried her the day you called her weak. His lips trembled, but no words came. Around us, the party carried on, laughter, music, chatter, as if the world had no time for his sorrow. I picked up my glass, finished the last sip, and set it aside. Then I turned, my dress brushing against his arm as I walked past him. I didn't look back. Each step away felt like sealing a door, locking it forever. By the time I reached Emily, my chest felt light, unburdened. Are you okay? She whispered, concern etched into her face. I smiled, not forced, not brittle, but real. Yes, for the first time, I think I am. When I finally stepped outside, the night air was cool against my skin. I inhaled deeply, staring at the city lights. Behind me, Daniel was drowning in the very storm he once chose. Ahead of me, the road stretched wide, open. And for the first time, I knew exactly where I belonged. Not in his shadow, not in his chaos, but in the quiet strength of my own life. I walked into the night, free. The morning after Emily's party, I woke to sunlight pouring through my apartment window. For the first time in months, the light didn't feel intrusive. It felt warm. Luna stretched lazily at the foot of the bed, her small paws kneading the blanket before curling back into sleep. I watched her for a moment, realizing how symbolic she had become in my life. A creature abandoned, fragile, written off. And yet, she thrived. Not because she begged for what hurt her, but because she found someone willing to choose her, and because she, in turn, chose to survive. I got up and padded barefoot into the kitchen. The kettle whistled as I poured hot water over tea leaves, the steam rising in soft curls. As I sipped, I thought about Daniel. Nah. I didn't picture the man from last night, hollow and desperate. I didn't picture the man who once sneered at my stability, who called me boring, who tossed my love aside like it was nothing. I thought of him as a closed chapter, a book I had finished, shelved, and no longer felt the need to reopen. The old Nancy, the one who sacrificed everything to be indispensable, who mistook martyrdom for love. She might have wondered if Daniel could still be saved. She might have worried about how others perceived her silence, her refusal to step back into his chaos. But that Nancy no longer existed. Weeks passed. Work consumed me in the best way. My boss praised my initiative, giving me projects I never would have been trusted with before. I started to feel the sharp thrill of independence, the pride of building something that was mine alone. I took long runs along the waterfront, pushing myself until my lungs ached, until sweat blurred my vision. Each stride was a reminder that my body carried me forward, no one else. I made new friends. Slowly, cautiously, I let people into my circle, not the glittering, shallow crowd Daniel once idolized, but people who valued laughter over status, honesty over performance. We had quiet dinners, movie nights, conversations that lingered until 2 a.m. For the first time in years, I felt surrounded not by judgment, but by warmth. And still, in quiet moments, his words sometimes whispered back to me, too kind, weak. But now I answered them. One night, while folding laundry, I said it aloud, testing the sound of my own conviction. Kindness is not weakness, it's strength. It always was. Luna meowed as if in agreement, and I laughed. Soft, genuine, healing. Months after the party, I ran into Melissa downtown. She looked surprised to see me, her eyes darting nervously as if expecting me to snap. "Nancy," she stammered, I heard you saw Daniel at Emily's." I nodded. "I did." She hesitated. How was he?" "Lost," I said simply. Her brow furrowed. "And you didn't take him back?" I almost laughed, but the sound caught in my throat. "Melissa, he left me because he thought kindness was weakness. Why would I go back to that?" She didn't reply. Maybe she didn't understand. Maybe she never would. But it didn't matter. I wasn't explaining myself anymore. I walked away, my steps steady. For once, I didn't feel the need to look back. One evening, months later, I sat by my window with a glass of wine. The city stretched before me, glowing in the twilight. Luna curled against my side, her soft breathing, a steady rhythm. I thought of Daniel, wherever he was, maybe still chasing validation, maybe still drowning in the consequences of his choices. A pang of something flickered in my chest. Not love, not longing, not even pity, just acknowledgement. He had been a part of my story, but he no longer defined it. And then I thought of myself, of the girl who once cooked meals in silence while her partner slipped away, who once turned down promotions to stay in his orbit, who once believed that love meant erasing herself. She was gone. In her place was someone new, stronger, softer in ways that mattered, harder in ways that protected. Someone who knew that silence could be a boundary, that walking away could be the bravest act of love, love for herself. Sometimes I still hear his voice in my dreams, the mocking laugh, the cruel words, boring, weak, too kind. But in those dreams, I always respond with the same quiet truth. Kindness is power. You just weren't strong enough to see it. And every morning after, I wake up lighter. The world didn't change because I walked away from Daniel. The city still buzzes, people still gossip, hearts still break. But my world changed. My life changed. Because I finally understood something simple, something I should have known all along. Kindness is not about letting yourself be used. It's about choosing, deliberately, who receives it. And sometimes, the bravest kindness of all is refusing to give it to those who never deserved it in the first place. I set down my empty glass, turned off the lamp, and whispered into the dark apartment, where silence no longer frightened me. "I wish you well, Daniel, but my kindness isn't yours anymore." And with that, I closed the chapter, for good.